Hey everybody, welcome to Everyday Chaplain. I'm Drew, and I'm here today with my good friend Brittany, and we're going to be talking about her experience being a chaplain in the Army, so that way you get a little bit of a feel of what being a chaplain might be like if you step into a similar role. Brittany, thanks for joining us today. I think this is important. We've been working together for some time, haven't we?
We have, yes. For what, close to 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
It's kind of cool. Like, we were working on JBLM together, and then we both have done the CPE program, the Clinical Pastoral Education program, together for the last almost a year now. And we also just found out that we're going to the same duty location after here. So whether we like it or not, we're in each other's lives for
It's
about
true.
7 years. So, yeah, so I have a few questions. Is it cool if I ask them?
Yeah, that would be great.
Cool. So I wrote them down because I can't remember them all off the top of my head. How did you know that God was calling you to be a chaplain?
Oh, this is a good one. So I am a military brat, and I grew up in a military family. And so we would have Club Beyond, or one of our youth groups, meet every week. And I always went to youth group because that was the only place that I could go when I was grounded. And so I made a lot of really good relationships there by happenstance. And it really was a wonderful experience. But I remember a very distinct moment. We were doing, as we did every week, I was a high school and I was serving the middle schoolers. And they were going through the line, and we were serving them dinosaur chicken nuggets.
I still eat those today.
Some people gotta have them. But I remember putting those chicken nuggets on the plate, and I was standing next to one of the airmen who were there volunteering their evenings after a long day of work. And I thought that God had called me to work with middle schoolers, and that's why I was there volunteering. But it was those dinosaur chicken nuggets. It was that funny airman standing next to me that made me realize that my parents had given a lot to their service in the military, and so had that airman. And I felt that God was saying, you need to show them how much I love them.
Okay.
And so it was from that point on. I was, I think, a sophomore in high school, maybe. And so from that time on, I knew God was calling me to the ministry. I didn't know how to get there, but I knew that that's where God had been calling me.
That's really cool. So if you eat chicken nuggets, then you know. No, just kidding. But really, it's that serving, already kind of being in a place of service that, from what I heard in your story, and I've heard this in a lot of other people's stories too. Sometimes we don't know. We feel maybe God calling us to serve somewhere, but maybe we don't know exactly what that is. But as we're serving, God further refines what that looks like.
Yeah, I think I was very convinced that I was working with middle schoolers, and God just changed my mind because of the people that I worked with. That was where He was really calling me. I wanted to work with middle schoolers. They're easier sometimes than being in the military.
Sometimes, yeah.
But I'm just grateful that God refined that call for me, for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. And my daughter, when she becomes a middle schooler, which is here soon, I'll send her to your house since we're going to be living at the same same
I'll give
location.
her all the chicken nuggets she wants. All of them.
I already steal some of them, so she'll probably want some more. Okay, so next question. What has been the most enjoyable aspect of your ministry as being a chaplain?
Ooh, well, I'd say hands down the holistic nature of the Army. I really appreciate that. Not only do I get to do the ministry, but I also get held accountable for taking care of my body, for taking care of my spirit, and for taking care of others. And I think that holistic approach to life really makes this more of a calling and a profession that continues 24 hours a day. And I'm really grateful for that because it lends itself to being more of a family. And I know I can go to work. I know I have people I can depend on. And I know that because I put in the work that they can depend on me too. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think I concur. That's one of the things I really like about being a chaplain as opposed to the ministry that I had in parish or church ministry was, in that setting, it was like I was the pastor for Sunday or special events type thing. But in the Army, I'm kind of the chaplain. It's kind of like that holistic. I'm a chaplain, but I'm a chaplain when we're doing PT together, physical training together. I'm a chaplain when we're in a meeting. I'm a chaplain when I'm doing church services and everything in between. We recognize that the military recognizes there's a spiritual component that is in all of life, and that's one of the things I really enjoy too. So next question that I have for you is what advice would you give those considering military chaplaincy, or those maybe just stepping into the role of a military chaplain?
Well, something that the military loves to talk about is never reinvent the wheel. The greatest advice that I wish someone had given me early on, and that I did get eventually, was surround yourself by those people that are on the same journey as you, and allow yourself the opportunity to invest in a relationship with them. For me particularly, it's really important to have strong female mentorship in my life. And I didn't realize at first that I needed those people. And so I would say to anyone that is searching for chaplaincy, there are so many strong chaplains in the Army. Particularly for me, the strength is in having a community of women. And so I found those chaplains, I invest in those chaplains, they choose to invest in me, and lifelong friendships have come out of it. So that's definitely the most important thing so far.
I concur 100%. If you are a Lone Ranger chaplain and you step into the Army trying to minister to the groups that you've been called to minister to, but you don't have other chaplains that are feeding into you and supporting you, and even sometimes showing you the ropes on how to do things, it's gonna take you take a long time for you to get there. But if you have people that you can partner with, you can like teach each other things. Not just the teaching element, but also just the spiritual support, because sometimes chaplaincy can be a lonely place. And it's having good friends, whether it's female chaplains, like in a female group, our friendship, other friendships. There's been soldiers that I've been working with in my battalion, this was before CPE, that I called you up because it was stuff I couldn't handle, but you could with your skill sets. And we've supported each other even in that setting, right? And
if you try and do it by yourself, oftentimes that feeling of loneliness just can be overpowering. And so it really matters that we don't try and figure everything out by ourselves, that we invest in the relationships with other people, because that can be the light out of a dark moment.
Yeah, definitely. And it helps you not get into burnout.
Oh, yeah. And it can happen quickly.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, next question. What have you found difficult in chaplaincy, and how have you overcome it?
The joy of chaplaincy and sort of the hardship for me is that we get to serve in all sorts of different roles. And generally, the Army doesn't call you and say, where do you want to go? I'm going to send you there, definitely. And so the kinds of roles that we've had, that I have particularly had, have been very different from what I experienced in my civilian ministry. And so the transition into that, like I said, I didn't have wonderful mentorship as I came in. And so my transition was a little hard. I really appreciated my 3 years with the field artillery. It was wonderful. And also I did a lot of learning on my own. And I think that made it really difficult, because that first 2 years, lots of ministry happened that was hard enough. I wasn't always prepared for the things I encountered. And so looking back now, I really think that as we come into the military with those friendships, with those relationships, those moments can become a lot easier, because people can help us and give us advice.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing, because we all come into chaplaincy with a unique set of skills depending on like what our background is, what our ministry prior to chaplaincy was. And it varies a lot, even like what universities we went to. Some of them have counseling classes, some of them don't, right? And we're going to be put into positions and situations where we might be clueless. How do I do this thing, right? And this goes back to your last question, that, as you mentioned, that if you're trying to do this on your own and not rely on a team of other chaplains or experienced chaplains that you can go to, it's going to be a lot more difficult. You know, I think one of the strengths of the Chaplain Corps is that they're not all made up of Drew, or they're not all made up of Brittany, but they're made up of Drew and Brittany and others going on. Yeah, definitely. I think that's good. So, and last question, do you have like a ministry highlight or something that maybe you've learned, maybe something that you want to share for those that might be considering chaplaincy?
So I spent my first 3 years in field artillery. It was a wonderful experience. I enjoyed that. And then it was very jolting, because I went into a program called CPE. As Drew said, it was clinical pastoral education offered through the military. Wonderful, wonderful gift. But also probably one of the harder things I've done in my life. I think that it moved me into a hospital setting, which was a very strong change of pace. But I got to join a team called the Palliative Care Team, which their job is to take care and to help bring comfort and fill the wishes and needs of dying patients in the hospital.
Yeah.
And while that sounds a little off, I want to say that that's been probably the highlight of my ministry, because alongside spouses of active duty members, retirees, civilians, I've sat at their bedsides many different times with different kinds of people. And in each one of those moments, there's such a deeply spiritual experience.
Yeah.
Death is sacred, and there's something very special about that.
Yeah.
And I think it is such a privilege that Army chaplains have the opportunity to go be at that bedside.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could have gotten that experience anywhere else. And so I distinctly remember being at the bedside with a family who had just lost a loved one. And yet, in that moment, unexpectedly, the loved one had passed on, and she began to sing. It was so unusual. She began to sing hymns. They were hymns that I had known. And in that moment, we were able to silently, well, not silently, but we were able to sing those hymns quietly together, alone in a room, in the midst of her grief. And she really changed my life. And I thank each one of those families. I think that that's probably one of the highlights of my ministry, even though it's around death, was really an uplifting, sacred experience for me.
Yeah, no, I concur. I served on the palliative care team as well. And I was just talking to another chaplain earlier today, actually, saying out of my whole CPE time, the one thing that I have thoroughly enjoyed, or the most memorable, was being with those patients and families as they went through those difficult times. You know, one of the things I think with chaplaincy in general that I didn't get to see as a civilian minister as much is in the Army, I feel like I'm invited into those sacred spaces much more often. Families that are struggling, right? And they just need someone to talk to, or maybe it's even like a palliative care situation at the hospital. I didn't get that quite so much as a civilian minister. It's been a powerful experience for me, just getting to be invited into those places, in a way, be God present, if you will, be that incarnational ministry in those moments has been very impactful and meaningful in my life. So I appreciate that.
And it really breaks down the barriers of culture and background and upbringing, because as a chaplain in the military, we walk into a room and we are instantly part of someone's story.
Yeah.
Whereas I served congregations for years, and I was always a part of my congregants' stories, but really not a whole lot of other people. I didn't break a lot of cultural, ethnic barriers. And every day I get to do that as a chaplain, and that's one of the biggest blessings.
Yeah. Well, those were the questions that we had. I want to thank you, Brittany, for coming on here and answering those questions. And hopefully these questions and these responses are helping you to discern your call to chaplaincy. And hopefully you could join our team and maybe work with one of us one day. But I just want to say thank you for joining, and also thank you for being a friend and being a part of my journey these last 4 years and for the next to come, you and your family. If you guys like this video, make sure to subscribe and also hit that like button. Share it with other people maybe that are trying to figure out if they want to be a chaplain too. And I just want to say thank you for joining us today on Everyday Chaplain. We'll see you later. Bye. Hey everybody, welcome to Everyday Chaplain. I'm Drew, and Chaplain McGinley